welcome to the Hospo Hacks podcast, where we dive deep into the minds of industry leaders, innovators, and influencers shaping the future of business, tech, and culture. Each episode, we sit down with game changers, disruptors, and visionaries to uncover their journeys, insights, and the lessons they've learnt along the way. Whether you're an entrepreneur, a creative, or just someone hungry for inspiration, this podcast is for you. So sit back, tune in, and get ready to learn from the best. From doing the night shifts at the Courthouse Hotel on Oxford Street in the early 90s, to running the Palace in Coogee, now known as the Pavilion during its halcyon days, to stepping up to run a listed investment entity in the hospitality space, to now landing some of the biggest sale prices for hotels in Australian history, and has even found himself on the board of the Roosters. Let's have a big Hospo Hacks welcome to Andrew Jolliffe. Welcome, Andrew Jolliffe.
Thanks, Johnny.
I'm going to call you AJ, obviously, because that's how I know you. So, you know, for the uninformed, it does seem like a meteoric rise for you. It just seems to be one level followed by the next. And, you know, and it is interesting to see, because I think the first time I ever met you was at the Palace at Coogee.
Yeah.
Now it's at Merivale venue.
Yeah.
And I think you were managing. I don't know. And you came on the scene pretty suddenly. So where did you grow up and how did you end up at the Palace for a start?
There's nothing meteoric about a 30-year career, mate, I can tell you. So it doesn't feel meteoric to me. I'm from northern New South Wales, from the Tamworth area.
Right.
So that's where I'm the eldest of four boys, and we all grew up there. Parents from that neck of the woods
as well. Is it
well.
farming or is it?
Mum's side of the family was certainly farming. Dad's wasn't, so they were from sort of other ends of the northwest, up around there, and then so then we sort of all grew up there as kids.
So how did they meet? Was it was it one of those what do they call it, the Bachelor and Spinsters or something like that?
I don't think so, mate. Far more romantic, mate. No, I think they were high school sweethearts.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So in the local country town. Yeah. Okay. So they did that. Ended up moving to Sydney to study, both of them. Mum was a nurse, and the old man ended up doing a law degree at Sydney Uni, which was a real stretch for someone from that part of the world in the 60s.
Yeah, wow.
To get himself down here and do that, but then they ended up repairing back to the country to have the kids.
So how did someone from the bush know that law is something? And was his parents, were they from sort of educated backgrounds? Because it is hard to break that sort of cycle, if you want to call it that. How did he know that that's what he wanted to do?
Mate, really great question. Absolutely, they were not educated people, Dad's side of the family. So, that's a source of inspiration for me to think about, what actually made him, how did he challenge himself to want to go and do that? And it probably saddens me to say I'm not sure what the impetus was for that, other than a desire an entrepreneurial desire. And I know that study and entrepreneurialism aren't necessarily the most common bedfellows, but in my mind anyway, I think, he looked at, there's a great saying, we're all in the gutters, but it's just that some of us can see the stars. I might have muddled that slightly, but it's my favourite. And I think somewhere along the line, something in him, wanted to challenge, knew there was something else. Those country towns, particularly in those times, 60s and 70s, were pretty basic places.
Yeah, of course.
Not a lot of opportunity for people, young people there.
And you normally just stayed in your lane, right?
Just staying in your lane, mate. Whatever that was. But he chose otherwise. Saw what there was. Interestingly, I was born here. Me and my brother were born here, but we then at a young age went back to the country. Mum and Dad had two more sons, no girls, notwithstanding trying, obviously. So that's how that all came about.
It's an amazing story. And then did he practice law?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he practiced law. He was a lawyer. Worked in the court system down here, and then had his own firm up there, and sort of did that sort of regional law up there.
And so, when did you come back down to Sydney? Was that in your 20s? Or was that...
No. I ended up going to school down here, so I went to one of the schools in Sydney on a sporting arrangement to come down here.
What school was that?
I went to Scott's
in
Bellevue Hill.
Yeah.
For no particular reason. We had no family history there, obviously, and that's where I ended
So were
up.
you playing footy or cricket or
Mate,
what were you?
I was a cricketer and I was a soccer player, which
Yeah,
was
right. Okay.
which was a strange breed. I can tell you.
It's a mix, yeah.
No, I just meant the soccer part in that GPS sporting system. It was a pretty new thing. But I did that down here, and then pretty much never left.
Yeah, right, okay.
Yeah.
So obviously finished year 12
Yep.
there, and then what, started in bars or did you go to
Yeah,
uni?
yeah. Took myself off to uni. Went to ACPE,
Yep.
and then, but like a lot of kids from the country, you work in hospitality. I mean, unless you're pretty much in farming, hospitality, or skateboarding.
Yeah, yeah.
In the country, there's not a lot
Not a
else
lot
to
to
do.
do, yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, I chose the middle one, and did some hospitality stuff there, and then just found it very very natural thing to do down here in Sydney, and
So where was your
that's where,
first start?
mate, I picked up glasses at a place called Jackson's on George,
Yeah, wow,
in
wow.
the old days when that was just a
I
really
thought that
late
the
night.
Scots connection would have got you somewhere a bit, a bit more.
You would have thought so, wouldn't you?
Yeah, mate.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no,
Well, at
mate.
least you saw the worst of it, I
I saw the
suppose.
worst of it, so started there, and actually, my dad. I remember he came in one night, and it was all on there at Jackson's one night, and I'm sort of carrying trays of glasses around on my head, and there's all sorts of trouble going on in there, and he just said, "Listen, mate, I don't think this is for you. Why don't we
See,
find
there's
somewhere else?"
yeah.
Yeah,
He could see legal
the
trouble
six.
coming your way. He was
Well,
going,
he's both my parents, one generation removed, both were involved in pubs actually. So, mum's family had pubs up in,
that's in your blood.
yeah, it's in the blood, and so dad, working in the Toxteth and Glebe, and another pub over in Manly, at a place over there. And so they'd seen it and they sort of knew a bit about it. So, yeah, they probably steered me out of there. And I didn't go far. I just went up the road to the Metropolitan Hotel, which is on the corner of Bridge and George.
Yep.
Still there.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's
Uh,
Oscars, isn't it? Is it?
no, it's not. It's actually they ended up putting a McDonald's on the ground floor there after a while, and then
There's so many small little pubs on every corner you
yeah,
just don't
yeah,
even know there's, isn't there?
yeah. This one's just up from you probably know, just up from Mr. Wong's, mate, where I
Oh,
understand you
yeah,
spend
yeah,
a fair
yeah,
bit
we
of time.
do. Yeah, I don't mind. Don't mind a long lunch. Um, Mate, excellent. And then
Yeah.
so, what, one bar job led to another, and
Pretty
then
much,
yeah,
pretty
and
much,
then
mate. That's
and then
what.
how did you end up at Coogee?
Well, I lived there. I lived in Coogee, and I lived next door to the Palace, and which it was called at the time. And I got a couple of extra shifts there. I ended up going from the Metropolitan Hotel to the courthouse in Taylor Square, the Judgment Bar for those who know. So yeah, there's a bit of a
That's got
theme.
a
There's a
checkered
theme.
past, and
Yeah,
had
yeah.
some strange characters there at 3 a.m. or
The
5
strangest.
a.m.
And I did the night shift. Actually,
Oh,
I did the night shift.
mate, the only way
Uh,
was up for you, really.
exactly.
Like there
Exactly.
wasn't.
No, no, exactly, mate. I think it was. I think I did 10 till 6 a.m. or 10 till 8 a.m. in the Judgment Bar up there. So, mate, there is nothing
You would.
I didn't
Yeah,
see.
yeah, yeah. 100%.
Lots of great stuff. Lots of
Stuff you want to forget.
immediately forgettable
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
stuff. But it was a pretty good expose.
I think sometimes a lot of those bars, you do see the human side of people. Like you realize how many problems are out there, and like
Yeah.
literally that a lot of these people that live on the streets are good people. They just had bad luck. Like they've either got mental health issues, or they've fallen on hard luck. They're depressed. There's a human side to those characters that get around, and even though they might dress really weirdly,
Yeah.
and or there is a human side you would have seen for sure.
I think you're right, and I haven't really given a lot of thought to the topic, but I agree with you wholeheartedly. You see people there that fall between the cracks in society. Now, people in that have I guess a concept in their mind about what that looks like, and I think the concept in the layman's mind is that you become destitute or you become homeless. But there's several layers
shades,
before
yeah.
that. There's shades before that, and you see people fall slightly through the cracks, and mental health's thankfully a much more prominent discussion topic these days.
100%.
But I'm talking about the '90s when I was there. It just
No,
wasn't.
it wasn't
just,
even.
it was,
Wasn't even. And mate, if you brought it up, you're
it was a weakness.
considered weak.
Totally.
And it's such a good thing it's changed.
Yeah, but you would see and you'd see shift workers. You'd realise what takes an international city like Sydney to operate. And so there were shift workers. So there were people coming in there at 2 a.m., which was their 5 o'clock
Yeah.
knock-off. And you thought it was strange, that they'd want to be doing that, but that was effectively, what they did. Or hospital workers, we weren't very far from some of the hospitals there.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
we saw a whole lot of stuff in that. And then, sorry, it's a long-winded way of getting to the palace, but
No, it's really interesting because I think it does build, and I'm not going to say this lightly, like meeting you over the years and sort of slowly getting to know you, and every time I've interacted with you, there was always a human side to it. There's always a kind, nice side. So I think building these stories are really fundamental to getting to know where you came from and how you got to where you are, because I don't think it's luck, So so you've done the hard yards. Like you're not going to get a harder shift than, what was it, 8 till 6 or
I
something?
think it was 10 till, it might have been 10 till 6 or 10
Horrible.
till 8. Yeah, horrible.
Right? Sleep
Yeah.
deprivation.
Yeah.
Imploding on your social life, probably trying to study, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Now that's fast track. You've gone to the pavilion.
Yep. Well, Justin Hems has called it the pavilion.
The Palace. It's just ingrained in my head. It's just one of those,
It's a pretty good place.
places to get
Pretty good
seen,
place
the
Merivale marketing's worked on you.
$25 pints that you seem to not even bat an eyelid paying. But anyway, he's done well.
He has.
So you ended up at the Palace.
Yep.
Manager.
Yeah, so I did a couple of relief shifts. So the guys who were running it grabbed me. They used to see me come, sort of around, and I think maybe we discussed what we worked in the same industry, and then I did a couple of relief shifts for them, and then ended up working there, and then ended up.
So was it Chris that worked with you, or was it
my brother Chris?
Yeah,
they all did. All three brothers.
I remember another brother. I just can't remember which one it was.
Yeah, Nick, Chris, and Matt.
Nick,
we kept the name simple, and then that we all worked there, and then we employed a whole lot of country kids. So it was almost like a refuge for displaced country kids, geographically displaced, emotionally misplaced sometimes too. But they ended up working there, and that, you got to remember, or you will remember, mate, because you were around, but that was in the time when there was no real Merivale in terms of the actual, unbelievable business that it is now, and all of its offerings. So there was no Ivy, there was no establishment, there was no Cockle Bay Wharf. I'm not even sure there was a Woolloomooloo Bay. No, Woolloomooloo Wharf didn't exist. The pub did.
Yeah.
So you had the Woolloomooloo Bay, you had the Chloe, which was where you were, which was absolutely rocking. You had the Coogee Bay, which has always been big. You didn't really have anything else in that whole eastern suburbs, and I apologise if I've forgotten someone pub that was there, but that was
there was.
Oh yeah, no, I guess the Beach Road.
Beach Road
was strong, but in our sort of eastern beaches neck of the woods, they were your options. So the Palace was an old aquarium, literally, and
the shark.
We had the shark. The shark disgorged the arm. Yeah, and we slowly took over each part of it, because I don't know whether you remember, there was a kite shop downstairs, there was a Chinese restaurant upstairs for a while.
Yeah, well, I think that when it first got taken out, because there was a cafe originally there, right?
That's right, Serenadas, that's
it, because I used to go there. Yeah. And I think I used to train at Giles and then go across there and have a smoothie.
How good was life?
Yeah, life was simple.
Well, I lived across the road from Giles. I lived in Beach Street, so I'd get up in the morning, I remember, and go and get in the water, but you'd go and train at Giles with Hank and all.
Hank would have his first VB at like 9 after training. He'd be sitting
Melbourne
in
bitter, MB, Stubbies of MB, scrambled eggs and beetroot.
You're a details man.
Yeah, but and he would do that. You're right, and then but people, we would try. You were there, mate. You would train, and then you would go to the Palace, and it was and that was kind of the thing. And then it got more popular and busier, and we got better at the offering. And then it just, it took off.
It did snowball. Yeah. I remember it was real quiet at the start.
Yeah.
Because I was working at the Chloe at the time, and we'd come down after the Chloe to Staffies, and we liked it because it was quiet. Sitting in the bar. And then like within 12 months, I think it just went ballistic, and then upstairs opened, I think, and then that was on. And it was on for 10 years, wasn't it?
It was,
were you there 10 years?
It would have been 92 or something until 2004. Yeah, more. And so you're right, it just took off. What a great ride, what a journey. Completely out of control. as in,
Well, there was
I
no.
mean,
Was there
wasn't
RSA in those
yeah,
days?
well, there was.
Was there course like you had to do a,
Look, do you know what? To be honest, I can't
and it
remember.
would have been a tick and flick job, right?
I just think we got overrun by the popularity of it, mate. You know, that venue held at the time 4,000 people,
Wow.
and we would be at capacity. I was going to say five, is probably an exaggeration. So between 3 and 5 nights a week, that place was at capacity, and you know, it was yeah. Wow, I think about it now. By the way, we would have taken nowhere near the amount of money that that same venue is taking now because of the way that how professional that operation is and the service points and the various things. It was very hard to get served at the Palace in the old days because we only had 2 or 3 bars.
Yep.
We didn't have a great back of house. It was
Yep.
sort of retrofitted, so all the back of house facilities, the kegs we literally didn't have enough storage for the kegs. We didn't have enough staff to serve you. I remember we had 2 glassies in the whole place. We had six
Really?
six doormen for
Jeez.
4,000 people. A couple of managers, and then I remember this beautiful old couple that cleaned the place, and it was a husband and wife couple, and they cleaned the pub just the two of them.
What, every morning?
7 days a week. Yeah,
Wow.
and I honestly have no idea how they do that. Anyway, that was the journey of that palace, and that was kind of the in a hospitality sense, that was the beginning of a lot of people's careers that have gone on and done great things, including, as you kindly mentioned, some of my brothers, but also Alistair Flower, who you
Oh,
might
yeah.
remember, Flowery, who's
Yeah.
got the
Flower
Flower Hotel
Hotels.
Group now
Yeah,
up
yeah.
around Port Macquarie.
Yeah.
Was an assistant manager there. Dan Brady was also, started.
Where's Dan
Yes.
now?
Well, Dan's finished up at Red Cape. He's doing some consulting work, and he's got a company called Axify, which is an integrated system for that speaks to the hospitality industry. So he's I feel like he could be your next
Yeah,
guest
yeah,
on
yeah,
here.
yeah. Okay, for sure.
Shane Curry's another one who started there, who's up working with Flower Hotels. But yeah, look, it was the breeding ground for a lot of hospo careers.
Well, this is segues lovely because this is what I sort of when I spoke to Cliffo about it,
Yeah.
Dave Clifton,
Yeah,
if
yeah.
anyone's doesn't know, how it is a career now. Like
Yeah.
literally, it wasn't seen as a career path, and
Yeah.
like when I found out he was CEO,
Yeah.
that's not just becoming the venue manager. That's
no.
like next level. That's talking about vision and purpose and staff retention and numbers and and
Yeah.
and now, and more about this than me, obviously, there's some there's actually funds that
Yeah.
invest wholly into hotel groups.
Look, this is a huge industry and very valuable assets and huge revenues, right? So you're right, and it's unbelievably regulated. So, you know, there are people obviously who work in regulated industries, but I really struggle to think about one that's got more state-based, federal-based, local government, and then we've got specified regulatory requirements in terms of the movement of cash because it's still a cash business. So a lot of industries now have really gone away from cash.
Well, AML stuff.
AML stuff is
yeah,
huge.
yeah.
AUSTRAC is huge. We don't have the same requirements as banks about knowing your customer to the same degree. But now, in terms of gaming and the revenues that come from gaming, there is a positive obligation on venues to know about large sums of money being bet through wagering
Yeah,
and
of
gaming
course.
facilities at the venue. So this is a really sophisticated person now that's got to work in that. It's gone to the, to be brutally honest, managers like me from that period, it's just not at the level of sophistication required.
I think the roles evolved as
Yeah.
the need.
Sure.
It's not taking away from how you managed it in
Yeah.
the day because obviously that was pumping for what it was.
Yeah.
You did obviously a great job. So you left
Yep.
the PAV,
Yeah, left the
the
PAV.
PAV pavilion,
Well,
the palace. Sorry, I keep
let's
mixing
just
it
call
up.
it the pavilion now.
Yeah. Anyway, so you left there.
Yeah.
Did you have were you offered a job somewhere? It looks. I looked
Yeah,
at your
so-
resume. So you work for another pub group. Did you?
So that particular group that I was with there, and the gentleman David Kingston, that was really the owner and the funder behind that. We then grew that out from there. So we went and found some other sites. We actually got got, for a period of time and in a period of time, we were actually pretty good at what we did. As I say, I was being a little bit self-deprecating before about how that skill set might translate to today. But at the time, we were
Cutting edge.
we were as good
Yeah.
as most other people, or most other groups. So we rolled that out to a place called the Empire at the Cross, which was a building
Yeah.
that we bought. Yep, which we bought, an old building there called Les Girls.
And that was a really popular place too when
Really
you
popular.
took that over. Yeah.
3 or 4 levels, brand new. Opened that in 2000. Actually, and this is not an advertisement for Merivale. This whole discussion we're having, but I'll remember fondly when we opened that in 2000. Some guys who did some work with us said, "Oh, your place looks unbelievable. It's going to be so great." Yeah, it's the second best new opening. It'll open this year, and I thought the second best is no. What's better than this? And they said, "Oh, there's a place called Establishment about to open in
Oh,
George Street."
wow.
I said, "Okay, who's doing that?" And I was a guy named Justin Hams. I said, "Okay, well, could you get me in there to have a look before he opens?" And I remember they took me there to have a look at the pre-opening establishment, and yeah,
Yeah.
never felt more deflated in my life. Never felt
It's
more
so good to
deflated.
hear those insight because
Yeah.
it happens in business all the time. Like you think you're going well, and then you go, "What?" You just
What?
turn. You take your.
Yeah.
What the hell?
What the hell? Anyway, we did that, mate. We did this, the Empire. Then we did a place in Parramatta called the Roxy,
Oh,
which
I
was
didn't
a
know
big.
that. Yeah,
We
okay.
bought a theatre. We reconverted the
That's a
theatre.
great. Is that still around?
Yep,
Yeah,
yep,
yeah,
still around.
yeah, yeah.
I'm not sure what it's doing trade-wise, but it's still around. Beautiful old space. And we had one more up on the Central Coast at a place called Toukley.
What was that pub?
The Beachcomber.
Oh, the
The
Beachcomber.
Beachy at Toukley.
Well,
Yeah.
that's one of our customers.
Oh, the Oscars
Yeah,
group.
through Oscars
Yeah.
Group, and then through Public House, we've got the Toxteth, which you
I mentioned.
which
Okay,
you mentioned
yeah,
earlier.
you've got them all covered.
Yeah.
So that was a really interesting, different demographic up there. Central
Did you
Coast.
guys do that up to the pub it is now?
No,
'Cause-
no, that was
okay.
Oscars.
Yeah,
No,
right,
that was
right.
Oscars. And yeah, wow, they've done a great job. I remember
It's
messaging
beautiful.
them
I
all.
stay there,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
mates rates, and
Yeah.
it's a good little getaway. I can.
I message the Oscars boys every time I'm there. I get no mates
Oh,
rates. So,
mate, yeah.
yeah.
Well, they know where their bread's buttered, right?
okay.
But they might when they want to sell. I'm sure you've had a lot to do with him in that space.
Yeah.
So, okay, so then how long were you there?
I did that little group for probably 10 years, and then I went and hitched my wagon to a family that will be well known to you called the Laundy family, who
Yep.
were at the time
Arthur
and Craig and
Craig.
Stu,
Yep.
Danielle, Justine, who are obviously paragons of the industry. And at that time, we set up a private equity fund with an investment bank named Grant Samuel, and we basically raised capital, and we went out under the auspices that pubs were mispriced, that the funds that you talk about, that sophisticated debt and equity, hadn't really
Investigated it.
well, hadn't properly investigated, and there was a dislocation moment happening where these things were going to get more expensive really quickly, and we wanted to participate on that
Is that
journey.
because of, obviously it's tied to revenue? Was it because you'd seen overseas that there was trends happening in the market, or was it something you were seeing locally?
Two things, and one of them, yeah. So overseas, what we saw was, particularly in London, there were groups that were amalgamating or aggregating really large numbers of pubs, like
Yeah.
multiple hundreds of pubs, often brewery backed, but not always. And it was a sort of a private equity model where they were scalable. So they talk about what's the scalability of a product, and these things were really scalable. So we saw that, and it hadn't really happened here. So we thought it's a hugely fragmented market nationally. So therefore, we can go and get scale quickly. Operationally, we could handle we could prosecute the plan. We needed the money, and so we went to private equity markets. We went to family offices, and we raised money, and we got an arsenal of
Yep.
firepower, and then we went out and we thought the other thing that's going to happen here is the other thing we noticed was that it's a restricted barriers to entry are very high, restricted asset class. By that I mean, you and I can't, notwithstanding how much we might want to, we can't go and open a pub next to the Pavilion. There's only going to be that pub in Coogee, the Coogee Bay, the Clovelly. There's not a new big
Is
pub
that
coming
who
to there.
who regulates that?
Multiple government
Right,
agencies
okay,
regulate
right,
that.
right.
DAs for council that have got, areas now that are restricted. You can't have pubs in close proximity to
So
schools,
can
to
you?
various.
You can't just go and buy, like I think it was back in the old days. You could buy a license in the country, bring it in Sydney, open a pub.
Yeah, no, look, there's gateways now, legislative gateways that prohibit you doing almost all of those things.
Yeah,
There are
okay.
some circumstances where you can take those things and put them in new areas where there's a need. So where there is a
Catchment, like there's
maybe a new development,
Yep.
there might be a greenfield site opportunity, but then there are requirements around what level of gaming can participate in an area, and gaming is a topic that sometimes people like to avoid. I don't have any problem avoiding it. It's a very necessary part of offering a full service entertainment facility
Mhm.
that's been going on for a long time, and managed properly and managed ethically. It should be viewed like any other
yeah.
other revenue centre,
Like horse racing.
like horse racing, like sports betting,
Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
like two up,
Yeah.
on and on. So I think when you think about pubs, and historically they've always been on the high street, on the main street, often on a corner.
Yep.
They're the focal point around which
Community.
communities they orbit.
Charing Cross. Like, look at it.
Charing Cross,
Robin Hood on the right
Robin Hood,
opposite each other.
right opposite each other, and they're often multi-level, and and communities,
Gravitate to
they
them.
gravitate towards them. They're a magnet for people to commiserate and commemorate and gesticulate and do all sorts of
All the eights.
all the eights,
And eat.
yeah.
Yeah.
And we saw that you could also own the property and the business. And the model overseas is not so much that. The model overseas is actually you choose which you are. Are you a balance sheet entity that owns the freehold land and building, and someone else operates it
Manages
under
it,
another thing?
yeah.
But in Australia, we've still got more examples than not of actually owning both. The trigger there for us was, or the key there for us was, that we knew that we could get a type of capital into the business that would feel more comfortable with that, with the protection that property affords it, and so therefore we could raise more money in the capital markets, and which is what we did.
Because the debt's covered by the value of the land, or the
The debt is underwritten by this. You've got greater flexibility in terms of managing peaks and troughs in revenue cycles or in external influences. So so there's a whole safety net that goes with owning the property as well. So we did that. We grew that business rapidly. We ended up with not quite 50, but almost 48 pubs nationally. We listed that company,
right.
and then we operated that company on the ASX for.
So is that still the company the Laundies run their businesses?
No,
under now?
they've got their own private company, so this sat outside that family business,
Right.
and that company has effectively become Redcape now. That
Right.
So that's
Okay, the evolution.
That's the evolution of Redcape.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we did that for that period of time, and then one thing leads to another, and I find myself in agency and an advisory business, albeit in the same asset class.
Yeah, right. So that's a massive, you've got such a vision over every stage of those businesses, right? And so particularly with the Laundy model, which is now the Red Cape model, was part of the reasoning also is that you could have control over you could buy everything in bulk. You could have surface offerings that are uniform so that there's no lack in certain areas. So you've got a standardized approach to business, branding, management, like a real control over that. Because let's face it, it's all about service,
Yeah.
Was that part of the offering, is like the reasoning as well? Like you had a real tight control over management, and then how that's sort of delegated to each of the venues. It's a standard-based approach, and that's, you look at Justin Hems now, what he's done. The standard is high in all of those venues.
Yeah.
And obviously the experience varies from bar to bar, venue to venue, restaurant to restaurant, but there's some things that aren't compromised, and that's service, right? And the availability of different types of wines. He's got a very good covering, and so That's really interesting. So then, what were you there? 5 years?
Yeah, I think we were in that listed space for 5 years. Yes, so that's right.
And
Yeah.
what was the event that made you move on from that? Like, had that run its course? Had it grown to
For
where?
me, it had. Yeah, for me, it had. It clearly went on to bigger and better things post my involvement there. But for me, it had. That listed space environment was, really fascinating. Very new for me. I was the
Yeah.
CEO there.
And you found you had to do a lot of learning in regards to
Oh,
equity and
yeah. I just think reporting. I
yeah,
think
right.
that environment for me, the sort of the takeaway for me about that is that you're in. You're effectively managing other people's money, and we did that at the investment bank at Grant Samuel in a private equity sense. But it's a whole nother layer to do it in a listed space. There's a thing called the 3.1 listing rule, which basically is a continuous disclosure obligation that you must tell the market, publicly make a disclosure to the market at any time where there is something of materiality, or there is something that was confidential that you believe to be no longer confidential, or there's a change in your performance of your
So this
business,
is
or you can
publicly
perceive from
listed company.
publicly listed
Yeah,
companies, and
right,
you
right.
need to make that disclosure. So in the back of your mind, you're always thinking, I've got to comply with that ASX listing rule. I've got an ASIC compliance requirement as well.
Yep.
I've got these shareholders. I've got
Oh, yeah.
staff. I've got all of these things. Oh, yeah, by the way, I've still got to run this business. And
That's
your competitors who don't have that don't have to worry about that. And the other thing about it, Johnny, is that you've got to tell your competitors that you're competing with literally all your detail. You've got to make it publicly available. So
so they know
these are
your
our
revenue.
forecasts.
They
They know
know
your
for
revenue.
yeah.
They know your forecasts. They know your new strategies. Our strategies, if our strategy is food and we're going to centralise food, or we're going to do this, or maybe our strategy is our
But how often
procurement.
would you have to? You say it's got to be readily available.
Mm.
So
Well, there's a couple of
so
times
if
a
you
year
have
when,
a meeting, a board meeting, you say, well, I don't know if it's at that level, but
yeah.
then you go, right, we're going to concentrate on food. We're going to build new restaurants. Do you have to report that straight away, like in the month, or can you do it after you've built the
Yeah.
restaurant?
I
Because that
think
gives you a head start,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. No, it's not so much about strategies, but if you said, "Listen, our strategy is to acquire these businesses and do paddock to plate type environment, and that's going to be our new food's going to be our
Yeah.
thing, and because of that, our revenue in that department is going to increase by 20%, and that has a material affectation on
Outcome.
profitability, and then you at a board meeting choose not to do that. That's market sensitive information. You need to tell people about that.
Right, right.
But it was more so, your procurement benefits, which is what you're talking about centralised things. So what are our brewery deals? What are our, protein deals that we're doing with someone? All of that sort of stuff. If there's some of those things you didn't have to disclose the minutiae about that, but who you were aligned with, it was a very transparent position, and it needed to be. I understand the reason, and that allows you to draw upon, the
It's
capital
good that
markets.
you can really clearly articulate the difference between private and public,
Yeah.
and the well, you can call them roadblocks, but the
Yeah.
regulatory sort
Yeah.
of,
Yeah.
paths you have to cover. And that, mate, that is such a sort of well-rounded career path.
Mm.
So, you've got a really good understanding of the, let's talk, from, if it's the paddock to plate of Hospo, right? So when did you start to get into, was it just your network? Like, how did you get into
Yeah,
sales?
it was. You know what? It was. So I met the White family socially. So that's the family that owned the real estate agency Ray White,
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah.
which is
Massive.
just massive. Well, the
Yeah.
biggest real estate agency in Australia by
Yep. Country
multiple
Mile, yeah, yeah.
country mile,
A
privately owned.
Tamworth Mile.
A Tamworth Country Mile, privately owned, fourth or fifth generation now, I think.
Yeah, right.
Awesome business model. Really, really special people
Good family, good leaders. Yep.
really, really great leaders, and delight to be involved with. So I met them socially, and I was sort of. I had a few pub investments myself, but I was sort of thinking, what's the next thing going to be? And they suggested, listen, to your point, you've got a network, you've got this experience. Why don't you think about turning that into something more, in an agency, in an advisory sense? And it didn't immediately grab me, and for no no good reason. It just wasn't something that occurred to me to be a good idea. But then, I discussed that with a few people, and I thought I would give it a go. And the transition was not as straightforward as I'd thought, because I went from being a contemporary with a lot of these people to then a service provider. And maybe the challenge was more for me than for them.
Yeah, you probably thought you dropped a level. You're approaching them now
Yeah.
as the customer,
Yeah,
not the
yeah.
equal, right?
It's a change. It's an
Yeah,
interesting dynamic.
yeah.
And so, but I worked my way through that, and then saw that this was an industry that I think I went from over 1,000 staff, and in those 40 odd venues, and lots of compliance and lots of
Box
reliance
ticking. Yep.
reliance
On you, yeah,
on
yeah.
me as well, to literally myself and one other.
Right.
A lady
So you had
named Vicky Bush, who is still works with me today, and so it was literally her and I, and it was cathartic not to have to worry about
yep, yep.
all of these other things. I found it invigorating, kind of tapped into a bit of that entrepreneurial kind of spirit that I think I enjoyed, from
Yeah, back
from
in
my
the day.
father,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
from some of the juices that got him flowing. So I went into this, and I think the thing that really attracted me to it, John, was it's the epitome of a meritocracy, and by that I mean that the barriers to entry to do this role are very low comparative to other barriers to entry we've talked about pub ownership. But you basically, it's catch and kill, and you get out what you put in, and there is no one there watching the
There's no one
clock.
saving you either.
Well, there's no one saving you. There's no one watching the clock. There's no one doing anything. And the people that are successful are so inspiring. They're people they're just backing themselves. I often think if the government ran, the federal government or any
Yeah.
government ran on the basis of commission-based
Oh.
payments, this would be a very different
Well, I think
world
that
we live in.
it was one of the famous quotes from Jack Lang or something, is that, I always back the horse called self-interest because, it's always trying,
Yeah.
and I think,
Yeah,
there's no truer statement than that,
Yeah, yeah.
without being greedy,
Yeah.
everyone wants to get ahead, everyone wants to look after their family and all that.
Yeah.
And I suppose that, and I was going to crack a joke earlier about, you probably went away not too chuffed about changing business, then you probably did a few numbers and you went, hang on a minute, this might be a good go. So that, and again, as you said, and this is the thing about success, everyone thinks it's a straight line.
Yeah.
It's not,
Yeah.
it's your ordinaries, there's a few crashes. And the market, if you got good basics,
Yep.
the market bounces back, right?
Yeah.
But in saying that, there's times when every business person, business owner looks in the mirror and goes, have I made the right decision?
Yeah.
Were there times like that early days that you go, we're not getting any traction here, because yourself, once you get that first sale,
Yep.
you can build
Yeah.
on that,
Yeah.
right? And then it might be a 6-month gap, and then I don't know what your gaps were, and I
Yes.
don't know what your
Yeah.
successes were, but this
Yeah.
is, this is a really important thing for anyone who's starting a business. What was the first win that you made that you thought, I've got something here?
Yeah.
And
I
who
think,
was it?
Yeah, I think. Listen, I got because of my former relationships. I think I was probably given an opportunity to sell a pretty valuable property in the western suburbs of in Sydney in Fairfield on behalf of one of the supermarkets that owned it. It was
Right.
Coles at the time, and they were exiting their operations in pubs in New South Wales. And so I got that, and I sold that for them, and I sold it to a client who I'll never forget the transaction. He was a younger guy, and his family were overseas, and he wasn't able to make the decision. And I remember grabbing him and saying, "Listen, you have to buy this. You have to buy this pub." For these reasons, good
Yep.
reasons, not only
No,
to
no.
help me,
Yes.
which would have been
I'm
abundantly clear to him,
Yeah.
I'm sure, that bias. But and I remember being able to, I guess, influence him positively enough to do it, and for it to be a spectacular success, which he still owns now, almost 2 decades later. And I'm couldn't be happier for him and his family. And I remember thinking at the time, okay, I've got some skill set here to be able to talk at a level to these clients that was more than just, I'd really like you to buy this thing because it's for sale and I get paid and, that's what you do. So I was able to have a more of a a technical discussion about where the upside in this
Well,
in
the
this
beauty
business
of what
might
you're,
have been.
and this goes back to what I was saying about having that runway
Yeah.
where you could talk the numbers
Yeah.
and be totally honest.
Yeah.
And I think in that game that you're in, trust is one of the biggest thing that's missing in real estate, right? Renowned for like a loan, like a used car salesman, some of them, right?
Yeah.
But your personal brand is something you're going to hang your hat on for the
Yeah.
rest of your career, right?
Yeah.
So if you're bullshitting,
Yeah.
you're going to come undone straight away, right?
Yeah.
And again, if someone like you're the caliber and the background that you came in and said, look, mate, you need to buy this. This is
Yeah.
a good investment, blah,
Yes.
blah, blah. Take
Yeah.
me,
Yeah.
mate, I'm being totally
Yes.
upfront.
Yeah.
It's a pretty good impetus to buy.
Yeah.
Sorry to, and the beauty of, I think, what you had coming into that job was buyers and sellers.
Yeah.
You had the network both. You were
Yeah.
just connecting.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. And that's, I think, the moment I actually thought I've made the right decision here. And I also enjoyed it. I enjoyed that interaction. I think about interactions, you talked about trust. I think you're right. You're absolutely right. Trust is the superpower. That's everybody's superpower, right? If people have trust in you, in whatever it doesn't have to be a commercial relationship, personal relationships, where you've got trust, I think there's a basis there for doing, incredible things. When that's not there, it really doesn't matter what you have,
Well,
right?
because trust, a lot of big deals and a lot of big payoffs come over. They're not immediate.
No.
Let's be honest.
No.
Never are, right?
Yeah.
They're always a longer term game, and the foundations of that are built in the machinations of letting that deal go that wasn't really for that person.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
it wasn't the right time and
Yeah.
it wasn't the right deal.
Yep.
And they trust you because you said that to them at that
Yeah.
time.
Totally.
And then comes the one that really pays,
Yeah.
and you go, mate, this is time to go.
Yeah.
Time to go, you
Yeah.
know? And I think that resonates with anybody who's got money because they know.
Yeah.
And, funny thing about people with money, and you'd know this, is the more they got, the more they want to protect it because they know how hard it was to get. They're very, very smart and very, very astute, I'd say. Not tight, astute with their money.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to lose it. It took so much to get.
I think you're right. I think the other thing about people with significant wealth, particularly ones who have created it or have been a big part
of that.
the creation.
Yeah, they might have got an early head start, but they've gone
that's
with
right.
it.
There's some sort of historical impetus there, but they've certainly added significantly to that. John, they're actually not dramatically unlike you or I, and we see that. You see that in the sport, your chosen sport, and the people that you mix with.
Mm-hmm.
You also see that in footballers. We both see that are people of profile. There's a commonality there. They're not dramatically unlike us. Even people with billions of dollars, the thing that they hold most value in is actually time, because notwithstanding how many first grade games of football you played or how many millions or billions of dollars you've got, time is not something you can control the inevitability of. It's going to get you at some point.
Exactly.
It's going to get us all at some point. And I think the thing that I've found in dealing with those people is then understanding, okay, how am I more sympathetic to that particular, reality, that commodity that is that piece of that time, and I guess the most effective I am is when I'm more efficient with people's time. And so I know that I need to get, whatever a message, I need to get something done in a period of time that is not, coming at a time impulse to them. That's a really big thing. And it's not an easy thing. And it's not something that it's a set and forget thing for me. It's a reset mechanism always.
So can you give me an example? Because I'm really is that in saying if you meet with someone, you don't waste their time? Are you saying that when you say you're going to get a contract to them, it's within a week? How does that play out in real life? Give me an example.
The manifestation of that is everything you've said, right? So it's going to a meeting with somebody prepared first of all, and
Yep.
playing out the scenarios in my mind. What are they going to say if we go that way in the discussion, or we go that way? I'm not going to
Doing
be.
your homework.
I'm not going to be shocked. But I also play it forward. I play the discussion forward. Where are we going to go here, so that I'm not there spinning my wheels or needing to come back to them at another point, because this might be the only window, the only opportunity
Yep.
that I'm given with that person. So it's about that, but it's about not being late. For meetings with them, it's about not being tardy in terms of responses. And again, we work in a frenetic environment where those things, there is an inevitability about that happening. But when you address those issues with someone who is time poor, which is any of those people,
Yeah.
and the reason that they are so fascinated about it, in my view, is because they've got time to think about it. So they've been able to get up at a Google
Yeah.
Earth level and look down and think, "Yeah, I've been so successful at whatever I do." But I'm aging here, or I'm
Yeah.
running
Yeah.
here, or my kids are getting older, or the opportunities are getting less and less.
And do you look at like, like selling software? Like, I do. We're doing a lot of
Yep.
sort of. We've got consultancies helping us build that, and
Yep.
one of the big things that I used to do was sell features.
Yep.
Where it's not about selling features; it's selling, it's selling an idea or selling, a benefit more
Yep.
than anything.
Yep.
And so when you're going into meetings with them, are you
Yeah.
looking at their age and going, look, their benefit is they're going to leave a legacy for their kids, or
Yeah.
they're 30, they're going to
Yeah.
be, their dad's got them some money, and are you talking to them on the benefit of the pub, not just
Well,
the
I'm thinking about that, because I'm thinking about what what their risk thresholds are. A younger person, is going to approach something, but it might be the asset that I talk to them about is going to approach it differently. Whereas an older person, or a person who's, maybe has, one venue as distinct from multiple venues, might be thinking about succession planning differently. So I've got an idea about what that looks like, and that will tell me, how I need to approach a discussion.
Okay.
But that's kind of one thing. So being able to sum a situation up or sum people up quickly is another thing that I think is really undervalued. And I was actually having this discussion literally yesterday with Craig Wing, who
Yep.
I caught up with, and he kind of shared his view about this with me, which was not unlike mine. And mine comes from a different place. Mine comes from standing on a door at the palace
Yeah.
in those days and seeing a couple of thousand people a night, but for very small periods of time, 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 15 seconds, a minute. And in doing that, you get a quick snapshot of a person, and just, one very small interaction, you can quickly weigh up roughly, and you get better and better at it. What sort of what sort of person is this? What sort of background are these? What sort of
Are they going to be
experience are they here?
trouble? Like
Are they going to be trouble? Are they going to be? Are we going to have to keep an eye on them?
Yeah.
Are they someone that we should, that we really want back? So we need to spend more time
Can we trust
ensuring
them?
that all of those things. That's been very helpful to me. His equivalent of that was, in a post or during football and a post football career, the amount of interactions he has with people that will come up to him and just want a photo or want a quick chat or want a whatever. And he's been able to sort of do that. And he's also
right.
he's also working in in the real estate industry as
Well,
well.
we'll
as a buyer's
double back
agent.
to this because it
Yep.
is this is we're getting through this because it's interesting for me anyway. Maybe not for you, but I'm sure it's interesting to the listeners. This because we'll get into the Roosters later.
Right.
But I just want to know, like, when you like back in the day, pubs used to go broke. Like they used to lose money, and people they barricaded the doors up. I haven't seen that in years.
Yeah.
What makes one pub more valuable than the other? Is it poker machines? Obviously, there's a head per whatever the licenses are for those. There's pokies. There's food. There's location. There's the venue itself. The size. Is there an
Yep.
oak tree in the middle of it? How do you value them? Or is it just obviously it's done off the market, previous sales, and all that? But
Yep.
how does that work?
Okay. Well, pubs. Your experience, your historical experience about pubs being boarded up and that thing, that time frame. I recall it as well. Fundamentally, pubs are way better businesses now than they were, and by that I mean they're operated way better.
Yeah,
There's
right.
no facet of a pub that's not run better. Think about your local pub. whatever that is. The food offering in pubs is now restaurant,
The
TV,
quality, yeah.
hatted
Yeah, yeah.
quality.
Yeah.
Even the pubs that aren't really trying hard in that area to do a fine dining model, the food is great, fantastic.
Yeah.
So you now choose a pub restaurant over another restaurant.
Yeah.
So they've improved dramatically there.
Never thought of that. They say they've stolen market share from restaurants.
Absolutely, they have.
Yeah. I never
Absolutely,
thought
they
of
have. You think about the number of restaurants that used to be around.
Yeah.
What was that place called near the Edge nightclub? Venice Beach in Dolphin Street in Cook.
Yeah,
Do you remember that place?
yes.
I think Barzura's still there. Actually, that's a
still
survivor.
there. Yeah.
But you think about a lot of those places that are no longer there because the pubs are
never
providing.
thought of
They've satisfied that need. The array of beverage options. So people now want to know about craft beer. They want to know about the provenance of the product. They want to know about wine,
Ciders,
but wine by the glass. Where's it from? So that service level is way different.
Yeah.
You've got now gaming and wagering, but TAB experiences in pubs are different, and watching sport in pubs is
UFC.
all of those things, right? Is so that the standard, and what about the cleanliness, and what about the safety?
Yeah.
Now you think back to a rammed Sunday at 9 o'clock, well, at the Chloe.
Oh, the Chloe,
right?
Yeah.
Just people squeezed in there, jelly bean jam thumping out the hits.
But even, mate, like I spoke about this earlier to some other in earlier podcasts, and like those days were violent. Like early days, mate, weren't they? Like some of those nights, like you've got to admit the Palace, and now it's safe because of cameras and security, and like the level of security in most places is massive.
But expectation, I think the expectation of the community
it has
is
changed.
that we want well-run venues that we can take
our kids.
So the elongation of trading hours is another massive thing. Like we used to trade the Palace. We would open that thing at like 6 o'clock in the night upstairs. I think downstairs open at, certainly wouldn't have been before 10, maybe midday. I think it might have been midday and 6. We left so many trading hours on the table, right?
They're open at like 7.
Well, they're open there for
breakfast.
Lots of places like that for breakfast. So there's mums and kids and prams having breakfast. So it's okay. I would never have dreamed of having mums and kids and prams.
Mum groups. They get on these mum groups things now, and they all meet down
down there for that sort of thing. But it's also okay. Like imagine going to any of those venues previously at 8 o'clock in the morning. You imagine what you would see.
Well, I used to grow up walking up from the sports ground with the Roosters, and Dad would walk me up, and I'd sit out the Dunbar.
Oh yeah.
And I'd have a pink lemonade and a bag of chips with Silky.
Yeah.
And all the paddock, Justin Hardacre, all of these old, and because that was the Paddock Colts pub, and Dad would be in there drinking, and we weren't allowed in, we were freezing, like we'd be all sitting there like West. And I mean, I think it's improved a lot, to be honest. You know,
it has, but you know what, the industry's improved because there was an expectation that it would, and then there's a body, and I know that Sean Morrissey's been on your program before, and he and others in there, John Whelan, Scott Leach, others, have demanded and dragged and encouraged the industry to lift its game, and it has. And so the proprietors of these places have taken the view that we can't, mate, when we opened the top level of the Palace, I remember we had a group called the Martini Club. I don't know whether you remember them. They were like a bongo.
Oh yeah.
That really cool thing, yeah. And we put them
jelly
on.
bean jam.
Yeah. And we turned the speakers, and I got the biggest speakers I could find from Steve Wade, another Roosters sponsor, at SaucedIt, and we turned the speakers out towards the beach and the community rather than internally because we wanted to basically
promote.
And we got all these noise complaints, and we just thought, come on, get over yourselves. I mean, you just can't imagine doing that sort of stuff these days, right? Or hunting people over to Chungi over at the Coogee Bay at 4 a.m. when the Palace closed, and we just get a cordon of security guards and just push them all towards the Coogee Bay and say, good luck over there.
Those guys,
and so those, you just can't even conceive that sort of behaviour at an operational level would happen anymore. And you've had Cliffo on here, and you'll have others, and it's just a different thing.
Yeah.
Because it's not sustainable, and it wasn't sustainable. And now we know what sustainability looks like, and pubs have a really important role to play. And in many respects, mate, they are leading. They are leading. They are leading what's going on in terms of expectations, of behavioural expectations. They're leading harm minimisation, both in terms of alcohol consumption, but also gambling. if you've got a punting problem, and it doesn't have to be poker machines, it can be horses. There's a self-declaration
Yeah.
process
Yep.
in hotels now you'd be familiar with. We think about another business that has these checks and balances in place, and has a genuineness to want to comply
Yeah.
because they realise that they want these businesses over a longer period of time.
Well, I think that if they didn't do that,
Yeah.
let's be honest, and community expectations, whether it comes now or later, that eventually gets there, right? Like people just have enough, and
Yep.
it just be pub talk, and
Yeah.
funnily enough,
Yeah.
and people just go like, my mum lost her house because it came, we can't have that. You
No,
just can't have it.
no, no.
Like it has to have that regulatory thing where,
Yep.
there are people with drinking problems and
course
there
there
are
are.
people with gambling problems. That is a fact of life, but it doesn't mean you should shut down. Prohibition didn't work for a reason, right? Because people like to have fun. They like
Yeah.
to not be told what to do
Yeah.
in a nanny state, right?
Yeah.
So I think regulatory, the way that it's being done, and
Yeah.
it seems to be done very smart in the fact that, they're controlling the problems, okay? And it looks like you can go and have fun and feel safe because there's plenty of
Yeah.
security guards. That,
Yeah.
and the self-exclusion
Yeah.
is a thing, but there's also venue exclusion and there's
Yeah.
third-party exclusion,
Yeah.
which means your mum can stop you from
Yeah.
going, or
Yeah.
or your partner.
Listen, they're all important things, mate. And you talked about cameras and safety, but you also talked about, just slowly, and it doesn't happen overnight, but just people taking responsibility for their own actions. There are still people who are going to, we talked about it earlier, slip between cracks or have moments in their lives where alcohol or gambling or salt and vinegar chips or
Yeah.
what did you say? Cherry cheer.
That's fire engine. The
Fire engines. People drink too many of those and eat too many too many salt and vinegar chips too. We need safety nets for those sort of people, but we also need that personal responsibility element
Of
to
course.
be, hey, we sort of, and it's incredible, isn't it? I mean, we went from a period of time where we had the lockout laws, decimate King's Cross and large parts of Oxford Street, and now we've got 24-hour, economy
in the city.
in the city
I know.
precincts saying, no, do we really have to be like that? What have we actually done, or have we just sent people with those problems into underground
areas,
and to
yeah.
other areas where you and I both know, and I would think 99% of the people watching your program would know, that doesn't solve anything. That
Band-Aid.
obfuscates. It
It's a
sends it
Band-Aid.
elsewhere to less controllable, less professional parts of society. So, so we're in a different place, and I think what else, and specifically to my role, what that management and that sustainability of that business product has done is allowed sophisticated money, the funds, the listed companies to say we can participate.
It's a better bet. It's a better
It's
bet.
a much better bet. It's a safer bet, and we can see how these things are scalable, and we want to participate.
And as you said, like the reporting is so much more accurate now. Like
Yeah.
you can get a bar by bar breakdown.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I know with my software, you can get a bar by bar breakdown of wages, the
Yeah.
costs,
Yeah.
that go into that to running that business. And it's and then when it's run as a publicly listed company,
Yeah.
they're all publicly available
Yeah.
information.
Yeah, but your programs will highlight stock loss really, really, really quickly, and with the I mean, those are the sort of things where the checks and balances now that are involved that exist in that industry, which mean it is it's at the forefront. I think of a lot,
100%.
a lot.
Yeah, so it's funny, there you are working on the door at the Palace again, and then and now you're on the board of the Roosters. It's a pretty and how do they do that on bank balance, or is that the only metric, or how do they do that?
Clearly not. Clearly not. No, look, I've been very fortunate to be involved in that club as a very strong supporter of everything that they do on the field and everything they do off the field, and living in the community as I did, and meeting those guys. And my vintage was, the 90s, which was a trying time for Roosters supporters until 2002 came along.
That's right.
And some great characters and great mates mateships formed with the guys in that era, and then support and love
So
for the place.
who are your mates from that era, like Minnie and like Freddie and Fletch?
Yeah, Rico,
I forgot
Minnie,
Rico, yeah. Went to
Minnie,
school with Rico.
yeah, Fletch, and Fitz, obviously,
Fitzy, yeah.
and Wingy, who I said,
Yep.
caught up. So there's lot, there's Moz Morley, who was out
Oh, yeah,
recently,
yeah,
who I
yeah, yeah.
keep in contact with. Just fantastic people, and I saw, firsthand what that did for after so long having not won a premiership to then win a premiership and then playing multiple grand finals
Yeah.
around that time. Yeah, it just galvanises a community, and that real Eastern Beaches community, which has been working class. It still is in many respects. It's a bit of a misnomer that it's the sort of this, the latte set. As you know, having
Yep.
grown up there, mate, it's far from that, and still remains in many respects far from that. So there was a real attraction for me for that. I've got twin boys who both played rugby league for Bondi United
Oh, did they?
as kids. Yeah, so involved in one of the feeder clubs. I think I was a water boy for that. For that.
So
For
why
that little
Bondi
team.
United?
I think Rico was
Oh,
the
yeah, okay,
was
yeah,
the
right.
was the intro into Bondi United
Yep,
there.
yep.
And so they
Because Fletch played for the
yeah,
Colts,
they're
and
all
so
Colts.
they're all Pato Colts
They're all
boys.
Colts. Yeah,
I
yeah.
think Wingy's from the South Comp because
Yeah, yeah.
they poached him back in the day.
Yeah, that's right. And then, but then and then that whole sort of Book of Feuds thing. I mean, it started then. Bondi United playing in that we had to play in
Yeah.
the South Comp.
That's right.
Hugely unfavourable draws
Yeah.
the whole way through.
Yeah.
Had to keep playing the same teams multiple times. Not a lot.
The hard
Not a lot of
teams.
luck.
Yeah.
Exactly. The Hugo Savala led teams actually, as I recall.
Yeah, right.
So
I bet you buried the hatchet now with that, wouldn't you?
absolutely, yeah. And so did that, and then mate got involved in the foundation. So I was invited to be involved in the Roosters Foundation, which is a tax deductible group that Peter Newton, Talking Newton, who's the patron of the club now and was on the board for 20 odd years, and so that is a group of people that meet and that raise tax deductible funds for kids from outside, typically outside of the area, and we house them in housing and then.
Oh, to play
Start
football.
the program to play football.
Oh, wow, that's great.
Yeah, and then infuse them in the culture of the place, in the strong DNA that runs through that club. You mentioned that your old man had some history
Yeah,
there with the
Dad
club,
played
so
reserve
you
grade.
so you know what that's all about.
Yep.
That the real culture of the place, and really the role of the foundation was to get kids, and we've got kids in there from South Auckland, kids in there from far north Queensland, kids in there from all over the place that otherwise wouldn't.
So is
have,
it a house or is
it's
it
a block of units.
block of unit?
Yeah.
Where is it?
It's in the
You don't
back
have to
of.
tell me exactly.
Yeah, no, it's all right, mate. It's in Meek Street in
Kingsford.
Kingsford.
Yeah, right, okay.
And but it's interesting because we've got accommodation for the boys and some house parents, Dean Feeney and his wife, but also some apartments that are rented by the local community there. And so they've got to interact. So it's not a frat house. This is like a
No.
They've got to behave. And,
I'm fairly sure it would have been well managed.
yeah, it's well managed, really well managed. And Minnie looks after the nutrition for the guys there. Jake Friend is in charge of the academy. He and Orbo were doing
Yep.
it. Mitch Orbison, so they look after it. And we really, the goal is when these kids are ready to, in a sense, matriculate into first grade, they come there.
Well, they're not homesick for a start.
They're not homesick. They're physically prepared.
Yep.
They're mentally prepared. And that's a big part of it for those kids. When Robbo gets those kids, or when the first grade coaching staff get those kids, that grind of NRL top 30 training is the biggest step up. I mean, the game is obviously faster at that level. The physicality is probably not much different to a lot of the stuff they've been playing, but it's the grind. It's the relentlessness of the contact, the relentlessness of the up and back. That really brings a lot of.
But I think, if you're
undone.
coming down to Sydney when you're 19,
15,
no, but I'm
16.
saying imagine if you were 19 and then you're going into the
sure.
system,
Yeah.
you want to go straight back to wherever you're from, right?
Yeah, well, you just
Whereas what they're doing is slowing the process down, getting them, used to it.
Yeah.
And then it's not such a shock.
Yeah.
Which makes them stay.
Well, have a look at them. I mean, the thing's been going for 5 years, and
Well, wasn't this the first year that I was talking to someone? I don't want to mention their name, but
Sure.
they said that it's the first year they've started to use these. It's the first, what would you call, graduate coming through of these kids that started 5 years ago that are coming into first grade this year.
No, not quite. Last year we started, but this weekend actually we'll have our sixth in so more than one a year. So Siwa Wong and Rob Toyer and those guys, obviously already been playing. Siwa last year, but we've had Blake Steep now coming through. We've
Yeah,
had
right.
De La Salva'a,
White, the big front rower, Nufu.
Nufu White. So we've got a lot of the youth. I think the other day there was and again, the Roosters have got, and I'm obviously very passionate and
Yep.
probably sound a bit defensive. Hopefully, I'm not sounding
Mate, I'm on
defensive.
your side. Don't worry about
Okay,
it. You're in the
but there's
the trust trees here.
the latte thing's a myth, and the other thing that's a bit of a myth is that we just a collection of people from other clubs. I think the other day I think 9 of the 13 had been juniors with us, or had certainly played their football before the age of 18. 9 of the 13 on the field. So we're really seeing that come through. But there was a decision made by the head coach and by the coaching staff to really back youth, and we started that 5 years ago. But it's only been in this last 12 months that these kids are now ready to come through and to be able to be used.
Oh, mate, they're killing
and
it.
they're being adopted.
I see. I didn't realise
how
how deep it went. Like 15 in a frat, not a frat house. Beg your pardon.
Yeah.
And I thought it was as simple as just getting them training with the first grade so they understood the system.
Yeah.
Which obviously has a lot to do with it.
Yeah.
But it's a lot deeper.
Yeah.
It's building that expectation, those habits at that young age, right? And
Yeah.
because once you build habits from anywhere from 13 to 18,
Yeah.
you're set for life, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, James Tedesco's on record for saying it, that he was really shocked by the physicality and the preparedness of these kids when they got put in that top squad training session. There's normally a gap. So it's given him and Rads and the older players, the Lindsays of the world, it's given them that confidence that, okay, we maybe don't have to compensate as much for these younger guys coming through. They're already at a level. They're now starting to push us. Celestia Vecchetti is another one that an absolute talent.
Yep.
Who has made that grade and really when he's played in his last few games, you see just how physical he is. And this is a kid who's come through the system that possibly wasn't as well known to us internally, but externally maybe not. And Rob Toyer with his debut now, 10 games in. But we've been so excited about having that kid in our program for the last 4 years that we've just been waiting for this opportunity, knowing what his capacity is. So, yeah, it's an exciting thing to be involved in.
I know I could sit here all day and talk about footy with you because we're both passionate Roosters, right? But we do have a listenership here as well that probably, there's a lot of
not as passionate. A lot
of South supporters out there as well, and so that segues me into the South. We're talking venues.
Yeah,
we're talking one of the biggest venues.
Yeah.
Are we going to be able to stay exclusive to Stadium, which is again run by Maryvale?
Yeah.
Alliance Stadium. Are we going to keep it?
Well, I think the first
there's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, the first thing about that I think is it's obviously not my decision, and it's not even the Roosters' decision. That's for others to decide. But there are a few stakeholders in this, and I think one of the stakeholders is the community, right? Is the taxpayers of New South Wales.
Correct.
Who have vicariously contributed to building this unbelievable facility, and we all accept that is the pinnacle of game day experience.
Yep.
That Allianz Stadium. So we're very lucky. But we spent, as a club, 15 million, I think, of our own money in fitting out the section of the stadium, which we've now got a long-term lease on, which we've committed to. And so that was no small decision for us to do that. You see other clubs doing that now around other places. That was a big decision that the board took. So we've got an association there. We've made a commitment. Other commitments have been made, and without wanting to be incite violence,
could easily happen.
Other commitments have been made with venues New South Wales at other grounds, and there's a narrative around expectations around what that might look like. But fundamentally, we entered into an agreement with Allianz, and as I understand it, South Sydney Rabbitohs entered into an agreement with venues New South Wales at another ground.
Yeah.
And I can understand why people would want to play at Allianz.
So can I.
We all have similar feelings when we go and play at Suncorp, imagining what a nice thing it would be to play there. But we're pretty big on doing what you commit to do, and we'll continue to do that. And we'd hope that other people would do the same thing. No doubt, venues New South Wales are in discussions with the NRL about fixtures and sequencing of those sort of things. But again, look at the ground at the moment. I mean, we struggle to get, as a club, time on that field. That's our home ground.
So that's even going to be worse.
Well, we don't get training. We don't get the training time, I understand, we get on that field is very, very limited and schizophrenic, depending upon what the quality of the surface is like. There's been something like 36 fixtures this year on that ground or manner of
concerts and all sorts.
Well, no, I'm talking about sporting fixtures.
Oh, right, okay.
You know, we share it with the Waratahs. We share it with soccer, with Sydney FC. There are other clubs have got games on there. So there's been something like 36, and I think comparatively there's been something like 6 out at Accor at Homebush.
Yeah, right.
So I mean, when you're running a business like Venues New South Wales are, who by the way are doing that on behalf of the same taxpayers, and they're saying, well, we want content, we want game day activity here. I live in the east, so I understand what travelling to Homebush is like. I've done it in the last couple of weeks because we went out and unfortunately got beaten by the Bulldogs.
Yep.
But can I tell you the game day experience that they put on, and that's not their heartland. Belmore is clearly their heartland.
Yeah.
But they took a game there. It was their home game. They played against us, and the game day experience was not as good as what we do at Allianz.
Of course not. We can't.
But not much.
No, you
different,
could tell. You
right?
could tell, and even you could tell by the commentary, Freddie on the sideline. You could tell it was full on.
But not only the buy-in from the
Fans.
I'm talking about the
Club itself.
the whole thing, the audio, the visual, the atmosphere that they created outside the precinct, inside the ground. It was really, really impressive. So there's a club that's saying, well, actually our heartland's here in Belmore, but come to the game because we're going to make it an event for you. I don't see the same message. Again, I don't want to be. It's not my decision. I'm not the spokesperson.
But it's good to
for
get
the
an
club.
insight. It's good to see what are the factors that come into this, and it's not just, get your own ground.
Well, the following, a few weeks earlier, we were there for the South game, and it's very clear to me rather that they're not they're not sending the same message to their supporter base to come here for this experience. It's almost a.
So you're saying the Bulldogs did it? There's no reason they couldn't.
Well, I don't understand. They're both from disparate areas. They're not from that area, and they've made that a thing. So I think they could do that. It doesn't look sustainable to have another, whoever it is. Forget about the South Roosters feud, which is very real and will exist beyond this topic. But irrespective, whoever it is, the sequencing.
I don't think the
frankly,
South Roosters thing is just over this stadium. It's been around for a long time.
Yeah.
And there's a visceral dislike, and there's a lot of reasons. And I think it's healthy because I think it makes you passionate about your club.
Absolutely.
So, AJ, it's always been a bit of tradition on the Hospo Hacks podcast to ask our guests their 5 favourite pubs, venues.
Yeah.
I mean, look, if you can come up with 5, great, but just rattle off, what do you got for us?
Yeah, mate, there's no way I could only come up with 5, but ones that spring to mind. I love the pub at Brunswick Heads. I think a lot of people love that pub. It's
that was the one Ginge just sold, was it?
Yeah, Ginge sold that. It just says everything about Australian beach culture and that little township of Brunswick.
Yeah, I think certainly kicked off, hasn't it?
Yeah, but it feels like it's still 1980 something there.
Yeah, but there is a hatted restaurant there. There's a 2-hatted restaurant halfway down the street. So
yeah.
So that's
it's
one.
Got that. That's one. I really love that pub, mate. I like pubs in and around sort of Pato Wallara. So, mate, the Wallara Hotels is a great pub. And then you know what? I keep going down the hill, the Bellevue and the Four in Hand, but that's probably.
Beautiful.
In my mind says a bit about, a period of my life where you like
the
sort
London,
of getting
the
around
London,
it. Yeah.
the Pato Inn.
Yeah, they're all, but Pato Inn, another fantastic, that little bar in the side of the Pato, in the Pato Inn.
Yeah.
So not the main bar, there's a little sort of a whiskey bar around the corner around there. That's you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, I'm trying to think. A little whiskey bottle.
Yeah. Oh no, sorry, it's in the pub.
Oh, in the pub.
But it's on the
Oh,
back side of
yeah,
the bar.
yeah,
There's a little.
yeah.
They call it
No.
a snug. That's pretty cool. I love the stain in Manly.
Oh, that's a cracker, mate.
There's something about.
They've done that up, like upstairs is amazing.
Yeah, Sam Anu's done that up. We sold that to him. The Laundies and John Singleton, Mark Carnegie, Robert White sold that to Sam Anu, and he's done a great job. But he's a custodian of the place, as were they.
And
as
what's
as
the
were the Ryans
one up
before.
the road in the same mall? The
Ivanhoe.
Ivanhoe.
Yeah, the Ivanhoe. Another good one. Pretty hard to beat those. Some of those great Northern Beaches pubs, like that. And then I guess in the city. Oh, I tell you what I like. I like the Centennial too. The Centennial's remember the Centennial in the old days when you'd go to the footy or something, you'd walk up there and it'd be absolutely rammed. And there was a manager there named Helena, and I don't know how she used to run the place. She did an amazing job. Hundreds of blokes trying to get in and people trying to get in and eat and drink.
But just goes to show, like, Justin turned that pub into like the dining establishment it is. Like, it's unbelievable. Like, everyone loves going there for lunch.
Well, you know what? He didn't. Anthony Medic did. So
okay.
Before that. But I tell Justin that's my favourite Maryvale venue. It's clearly not the biggest. It's nowhere near the most profitable. But that really showed you the difference between him and a lot of his competitors, because he didn't actually change much about it at all.
Yeah.
But he just all the stuff you don't see, the stuff in between that he did that makes him so successful. So, people know him for his elaborate designs and his beautiful and all that sort of stuff. But that was all there.
Yeah.
He just executed at a level and he didn't need to change much to it. And so for that reason, I think that's
You know what I like? Fred's.
Yeah.
And then downstairs Charlie Parker.
Yeah.
Like you feel like you're in two different, like two different experiences in the one. So you have an amazing meal at Fred's, or you maybe sit at the bar, the old bar there.
Yeah.
I think it was a butcher shop back in the day.
Yes.
And then you go downstairs and you feel like you're in some New York sort of jazz bar.
It's funny, isn't it?
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, and it was the thing that just didn't exist before, right?
No.
It was, he just conceived this from somewhere, and it was would have been an old retail store, and downstairs would have been storage.
Well, have you been to New York?
Yeah.
Like some of the bars, they might be 80 years old, or they're amazing.
Yeah.
Like they've got this feel, this vibe, and
Yeah.
you can feel it when you go in there. I can. I feel like it feels like the genuine article, the authentic.
Oh, totally. And the walls speak in these places, right? And the just
They don't say too much.
The character, well, that's right. The characters, those sort of things. Even his place in Coogee, obviously, that's the pavilion's another place. So that looks. But I'm really attracted to pubs, everything that they are. All the stories, all the history. I love the thought about them. The owners just being custodians. I love the industry. It's real. It's based on relationships, based on trust. It's based on little interactions. And I enjoyed your point about your own personal brand equity. Sort of carrying you through through a period. I enjoy thinking about that. And I
Well done, mate.
wouldn't be in any other industry.
Thanks again, AJ.
Thank you,
Appreciate
mate.
it.
Cheers. Thank you.